Hey everybody, this is Perch. One of the things I used to enjoy doing from the live streams is I'd show the comics that are coming out in the next month. And it was always enjoyable because it was always a bit of a horror show. And that's when you really realize that they're publishing 500 comics a month. And what I loved about that was it demolished a lot of different narratives, like the narrative of, hey, there aren't enough comics out to read. No, actually, there's 500 of them. Or, hey, I can't find anything I like. Really? Out of 500? You can't find anything you like out of 500. Maybe it's true, but really, kind of the point of that, or the moral of the story was there's a lot going on in the indie world that maybe you should take a look at. And I totally understand, and don't get me wrong, it's totally fine to complain about Spider-Man if you've been collecting Spider-Man for 30 years and then they've taken it a bold new direction and you just are, you're not feeling it. You're not supposed to just shut up and take it. You can definitely say, this is not the comic I grew up with, it's not what I like. Now, that argument falls apart a little bit when Marvel publishes something new. It's always what I was having trouble with the arguments of, Miss Marvel. It's like, why is Marvel publishing a Miss Marvel comic? It's like, yeah, but you don't have 30 years of history with Miss Marvel. They didn't wreck any character with Miss Marvel. Now, when they start inserting Miss Marvel into other books, then sure. I mean, it's like, why is she leading the Avengers now? Yeah, it's a valid question. But, a lot of people are complaining about her just having a comic. It's like, no, that's the right way to do things. You should be applauding that. You don't have to buy it. But that is correct, growing the audience through a new book as opposed to doing something different. But regardless of all that, as I've said, there's a little bit of self torture if you are, I mean, like me, and I'm credible to say this because I am a hypocrite, or maybe that's the wrong word, but I'm familiar with this pain of somebody who does not like the X-Men direction, hasn't liked it for a while now, keeps buying the comics because I'm a collector, and so you get my money, and it's stupid. Am I being stupid? Yes, 100% I'm being stupid. 100%. But that's it doesn't take away your right to complain about it. At the same time, you got lots of comics out there. I mean, you got Ghost Machine out there putting out really good books. Almost, I mean, I've enjoyed all of them at different levels, but I've enjoyed them. And I also think the Junkyard Joe getting ripped off for the Creature Commando show by James Gunn is 100% bullshit. But that's a video for another day. Anyway, like I said, it's always kind of eye opening to realize how many comics are being put out a month. And so this goes right into the mail. What's the optimal amount of comics for Marvel to put out in a month? It says, Dear Perch, I think it's pretty well established that at this point, the reason Marvel puts out 80 books a month is to flood the market and take shelf space away from other titles. As a result, Marvel's releasing titles that are just filler to pad out the line, like the upcoming TVA book. I never truly understood why Marvel would devote resources on pointless titles just because they have a quota of titles to put out. Look at the current X line with all solo titles. It's clear that Brevoort and the rest of editorial only care about quantity and not quality. Marvel's diluting the brand long term by not having quality control. Yeah, for sure. By the way, I don't entirely think it is a case of, of wanting to own shelf space. That was the story back when the newsstand existed. The idea that we need to own shelf space, so we'll choke the others out. That definitely was a strategy. But with the direct market, that strategy is a little bit goofier. It doesn't it's not that it doesn't make as much sense. And I think that sadly, I think Marvel and DC continue this strategy slightly out of a mentality of, well, we need to keep we need to own the shelf. Except, does that make any sense anymore? And the answer is no. It just it bluntly, it doesn't make any sense anymore. But we're gonna do it anyway. And really, I mean, there is a path of madness in there. But anyway, let's finish the mail. It says, all this begs the question: what's the optimal amount of books for Marvel to put out each month? I would say about 40 books, with it being a mix of miniseries and ongoing titles. What titles would you have as core ongoing? Would you have Wolverine as a solo title, or just have him in X-Men? This is going to be a different answer for lots of different people. I think the cheap answer, which I'm going to give you now, but then I won't stick with it, is how many books can you put out in a quality way? Like, think about I mean, if Marvel was able to crank out 80 books a month and they would all be bangers, they'd like be high quality books. I mean, that would be like, who's gonna argue with that? I wouldn't argue with that. Even though that was a crap ton of books, I mean, still that would be brilliant. But they're not all. They're of varying quality, and I think in this instance, I'm going to call the idea of the mini series and some of the stuff that goes on there as varying quality. Because if you're putting something out and it's clear to the people who are buying it, reading it, that you really have no intention of this being an ongoing book or really even something you care about, it's purely done because you've got a Disney Plus show to promote or tie into in some form or fashion, then I think that's an example of low quality. Actually, you're doing something for just pure kind of marketing regurgitation, and every now and then you do get a good banger of a book that's marketing, but it's not often. Most of the time, those feel like the amount of effort that I mean, exactly the amount of effort the company is wanting to put into it. So I think and in many cases, by the way, creators, writers, when they get pitched, like, hey, would you like to do a pitch for as an example, a TVA book? The creator knows it's bullshit, but they're hoping to get to a legit good book. They're hoping that if they say yes to this, that could be their ticket into a real book somebody cares about. But the problem is everybody's going into this enterprise with the assumption that it doesn't matter. And I think and then that feeling feeds into the readers. So I mean, make them all quality, and make them matter is a cheap answer. For a more scientific answer, I think Marvel can put out and properly market based on who they are and the characters they have, the universes they have. I think they put out 10 to 12 books a month reasonably, which would be 40 to 48 books a month. Still a lot of books, but I think that's really what they have the capacity to do in a reasonable way. Still, they're actually, today, I think they're still going to need a big quality overhaul. I mean, look, if you're following the quality example, to its conclusion, you're going to use a lot of the same resources and everything else. And Marvel should put out 4 books a month. That's what that's what their current capacity of Marvel to put out good books is 4 a month. That's what they've got. I'm kidding. Well, not by much though. I'm being a little extreme. Anyway, you got to fix the quality as well. But I think in a reasonable world where you have more or less kind of some decent handle on things, and you're more or less managing the world, I think 10 to 12 books a month, or sorry, a week, 10 to 12 books a week would do it. And you could wrap your head, give each one a good solid marketing effort, a good solid editorial effort at that rate. I think that could be done. But it would take some effort to get there. Um, I think that what books would I have? I would have most of them be ongoing. I think the idea of the mini series should be that you're hoping it can be an ongoing, or it is a story that is purely has a start, middle, and an end, a very definitive end, and so it needs to be a mini series. And I think that story needs to be meaningful. I want to flip it a little bit, that when you see a lot of the kind of the minis that come out or the solo books that come out of team characters, they're not fighting any they're not fighting any legit villains. They're basically just they're kind of more or less just filling pages. They're not fighting anything that you're going to remember. And this is something, by the way, that's not a new phenomenon. It's been going on for quite a while. So I think it needs to be meaningful. Like for example, if you decide you're going to do a mini series catching up on what happened to the kids of the Avengers Academy, and there's a lot of great new characters that were produced during that time period, what are you going to do with those characters? Well, I think give them a legit story. As much as I kind of hated many aspects of the Dennis Hopeless Hunger Games ripoff, or Battle Royale, I should say, ripoff. There was they like to put arcade in there. They were gonna kill some off. Like there was a beginning, middle, and an end to that story, which they immediately went back for a sequel on. But anyway, there was a plan there. Not a great plan, but at least there was a plan. And I'd love to see them go back to the Avengers Academy days, and there's like 50 characters you could play with in there, and you could follow them, but give them a real threat. Like maybe you reintroduce a brand new Scourge. That was a character back in the 80s who was killing people off. Only this character is going to kill off young heroes, and the suspicion is that who the identity of this new Scourge is probably one of the Avengers Academy kids who's, pretty annoyed and pissed off by the whole thing, thought they were going to get some level of support as a hero and didn't. And, now they're killing off their classmates, and you have a mystery, you have a start, a middle, and a conclusion that is, a real conclusion, but the story's going somewhere. I mean, in terms of who should have a solo title or an ongoing title, definitely you got an Avengers, you got an Iron Man, you got a Captain America, you got an X-Men. You probably easily do 2 X-Men. You should have 1 Wolverine. But I mean, if you're looking at the X characters, I think having an X-Men, having an X-Force, having a New Mutant style, new X-Men type book, having a Wolverine book, I think you could be done at that point. 4 ongoing series that are X related. And again, if you're editorial and you're smart about it, you make the stories really count. You put out 1 a week. And so it's like 1 every week, there's an X title on the stands. And that's what works. It's a bell telling me I should shut up. No, actually, it's I don't need to explain myself. Anyway, that's what I would do. So what would you do? Who would be your lineup? If you're Marvel, you're doing run of solo books, how do you get there? And then, to me, I guess I would insist on this, that the really smart part, if you're being, editorially marketing minded at Marvel, is that you need to spread out your characters. If you're going to have Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America very tied as the Trinity to the Avengers, then Captain America should come out 1 week, then Thor, then Iron Man, then the Avengers, repeat. And you should basically tie into that segment and give every week something for people to read, enjoy, and be part of that universe. And then you do the same thing with the X-Men. You could probably do the same thing with the Spider-Man family. You got a Spider-Man, you got a Venom, probably a Miles book. But it's a combination, because I'm doing this video and I'm hearing my words say this. There has to be the combo of fewer books, focused books, quality books. So, like, for example, if you got Miles Morales out there and he's got movies that are doing really well and there's a lot of interest in this character, okay, cool. I think Miles Morales should have a solo title. Makes total sense. But make it matter. Like, it can't be Miles fighting a bunch of kind of random ass characters. If you notice in the Spider-Verse cartoon, Miles is fighting like legit, you could call the Spot legit or not, but he's fighting legit villains that you would recognize from the Spider-Man universe, or, the Kingpin's in there, the Prowler's in there, Spot is in there. I think he was fighting the Rhino at one point. And you can introduce new villains for him, sure, but it can't always be new villains. It needs to be every now and then a new villain. It needs to heavily have it feel like he's in the Marvel universe fighting. And by the way, I'm going to turn this around on its ear, and I'll probably do a video on this in a bit. I think that a requirement of creating a new villain should be that some other title beyond the one you're writing is going to pick up and use this villain the next year. It can't be just you in your title. It has to, that character has, I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule, but what this would do would help people actually think through, sustainable, powerful, good villains that could be used within the Marvel universe, which is meant to be a shared universe. And I think that's key. But how many characters do we see show up in a lot, particularly the newer titles, in the Miles Morales, or the, any number of various characters who have been canceled rather quickly, or whatever Gwenpool was doing, or whatever Miss Marvel, Miles, Captain Marvel. Like Captain Marvel, they introduced can the Kelly Thompson run introduce some new villains? When are they going to show up in another title? Or is anybody else going to use them? Anyway, that's my take. What is yours? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.